The fragile ceasefire in Gaza hangs by a thread, as the dust of destruction settles over a city that has forgotten what peace truly feels like. After weeks of airstrikes and cross-border clashes, the silence that now covers the streets feels less like calm and more like the breath before another storm. Families walk through the rubble of their homes, searching for photographs, books, or a piece of furniture that once made their lives normal. Children peek from broken doorways, their eyes reflecting both fear and resilience. For them, childhood has been replaced by the sound of sirens and the hum of drones circling above. Yet, in the midst of chaos, there is still a flicker of humanity, neighbors helping neighbors, volunteers clearing debris, and aid workers trying to bring food and medicine through damaged roads and checkpoints. The ceasefire, brokered in Doha with the mediation of Qatar and support from Pakistan and Afghanistan, was meant to stop the bloodshed and allow negotiations to continue. On paper, it promised hope. In reality, it is fragile and uncertain, built on mutual suspicion and exhausted trust. Each side accuses the other of breaking previous agreements, and small skirmishes still erupt along the border. For every diplomat's handshake, there are soldiers standing on edge, ready to fire at the slightest movement. The leaders speak cautiously, urging patience and dialogue, but the people who live beneath the rockets know how easily words can collapse under the weight of politics. Peace, they have learned, is not declared in meetings, it is lived in streets where silence can turn into sirens in seconds. Inside Gaza, hospitals are overwhelmed. Medical workers struggle with power cuts, dwindling supplies, and a flood of injured civilians. Mothers cradle their children, waiting for treatment, whispering prayers under their breath. Every corner tells a story of a family displaced, of a school turned into a shelter, of a market turned into rubble. The humanitarian crisis deepens with every passing day. Relief organizations warn that unless crossings remain open, food and clean water will run out. Yet even amid despair, people continue to rebuild, not because they believe the war is over, but because survival itself has become an act of resistance. Internationally, the response is mixed. Global powers call for restraint and dialogue, but their statements often feel distant and rehearsed. In world capitals, politicians debate resolutions while ordinary Gazans debate how to find bread and safety. The global media flashes images of devastation for a few days, then moves on, leaving behind lives still trapped in uncertainty. For many, it feels like the world watches but no longer listens. Yet among the rubble, local journalists and photographers continue to tell their stories raw, painful, and real, ensuring that Gaza's struggle is not forgotten. Analysts warn that without meaningful steps toward reconciliation, the ceasefire may soon unravel. Extremist factions on both sides test the limits of patience, firing warning shots and issuing threats. Border troops remain alert, fearing infiltration or surprise attacks. Every political statement is weighed like a weapon, a single misinterpreted word can ignite new violence. The region stands on a knife's edge, where hope and hostility coexist uncomfortably close. But amid the bleakness, signs of courage persist. Community leaders gather young people to discuss peace building. Artists paint murals over destroyed walls, symbols of endurance and hope. A few families return to their damaged homes, sweeping away the dust and lighting candles where electricity no longer reaches. For them, rebuilding is not just physical, it is emotional, spiritual, and deeply human. They rebuild because they must believe that life is still possible here. As night falls over Gaza, the skyline glows with faint orange light, some from street lamps, others from fires still burning. The Mediterranean hums quietly against the shore, a reminder of both confinement and continuity. The air carries a mix of smoke, salt, and silence. And in that silence, people listen not for the sound of explosions, but for the fragile heartbeat of peace struggling to survive another night. The world may have moved on to the next headline, but for those who remain, every sunrise is an act of courage. They wake not knowing what the day will bring, but still daring to hope that one day, this fragile ceasefire might become something stronger, not a pause between wars, but the beginning of lasting peace. Until then, Gaza waits, prays, and endures.